Hey artists, today we're going to be working with a lot of different materials because we're going to be collaging, which means assembling a bunch of different pieces together and on top of each other. So the first thing we'll need to do is select a sheet of paper. This is going to become our brick wall for our graffiti lettering. So I'm going to choose a color that's different from the color that I used on my actual word. So I'm going to be grabbing here some newspaper. I'm also going to grab some textured painted paper I have here, but perhaps what you have at home might be some patterned paper or just some other colors. You're just going to want to grab whatever you have to sort of collage and assemble a bunch of different types. So how are we going to be making this into a brick wall? Well, friends, we're going to go ahead and cut out some squares. So I'm going to grab my newspaper first, and I'm going to cut a big square when I have my paper folded, okay? Then I'm going to cut it in half. And from there, I'm going to do some different size rectangles and squares. And you can see that I have a bunch because I folded my paper over, and when I cut it out, I created multiple of those. Now I'm going to move on to some more colored paper. So once again, I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to stack them up together. So I have 3 sheets of paper here, and I'm just going to cut out those rectangles and those squares. I want to get a variety of sizes. Again, these are going to become our brick walls. So here comes the fun part. This is where we're going to actually start to assemble our brick walls. So what we'll do is we'll start by placing a piece up here in the top left-hand corner, and then we're going to build out on the sides and down below. So you can see if I place a piece of newspaper first, the next piece of brick that I put, I might want to give some contrast and perhaps put a colored sheet of paper instead. So I'm just going to keep sort of rotating and doing every other so I create a little bit of contrast. And once I finish that first row, I'm going to go down to my second row. It's totally okay if your bricks go a little bit off your paper. I'll show you how we can trim those off at the end. Keep going until your paper is all the way filled. Again, it's okay if you go off on the bottom of your paper, but just keep going so you have completely filled up a brick wall combined with different text and colors and patterns and images. So once you have figured out the order that you want your brick wall to look like, you're going to go ahead and start to glue it down. So remember, dot dot, not a lot. You definitely don't need a whole lot of glue to go ahead and glue your brick walls down, but go ahead now that you've assembled your order and make it permanent on your paper. Okay, so as you can see, I have finished gluing all my brick pieces onto my paper. So I can go ahead and flip to the back. See these parts that are overlapping on the sides, all right? I can go ahead, just take some scissors and just trim those off so that my brick walls go only to the edges of my paper. Beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about a little extra step you could do. So again, these are our brick walls. We're turning these into beautiful street art murals. So maybe we could add a little bit of paint splatter, do you think? So I'm going to show you guys a couple of different ways you could do this. I'm going to show you guys with some watercolor. I'm going to grab some paper and some scissors to make a stencil. I'm going to grab some acrylic paint and also a little tray to put that inside of, and some paint brushes, and we'll go ahead and get started. So with my watercolor, I could create some paint splatters, right? Simply by getting some water on my brush, dipping it into my watercolor, swirling it around, and then watch what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna flick it. Do you see how that water combined with the paint sort of leaves a little trail of paint across my bricks, all right? And again, I'm gonna wanna choose a color that I don't have already on my paper. So for instance, I wouldn't wanna choose a yellow because it really wouldn't stand out too much here. So I'm gonna choose a green because it's gonna create some contrast. Now let's talk about creating a stencil. So you guys created different symbols on your art, all right, with your word. So for instance, Miss Ju chose kindness, and I did a heart, I have a peace sign, and I have a yin yang sign. But what I might also want to do is create a stencil of one of my symbols that represent my word. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a piece of paper here. I'm gonna create a heart, but what you could do is go ahead and draw a shape on your paper that you want to cut out the inside of. I'm gonna show you again here with a heart. So I'm gonna fold my paper, I'm gonna cut my heart out, and I'm actually gonna cut this little sheet of paper out a bit so it becomes a square, and when I open it up, oh my goodness, you see that the inside is cut out because guess what? I'm gonna sponge paint inside there to once again create a stencil with my paint. So I'm gonna sponge here with my brush. And when I pull it away, voila, you see a heart that I was able to create with my stencil. All right, friends, we're gonna work on part 4 next week, so go ahead and put this in a safe spot to dry.